Our second video today is going to be on what's called the zero product property, and that's going to be our second method we're going to use for solving quadratic equations. This video is going to be substantially shorter than the last one, so we're going to get through things pretty quickly here. We're going to ask a fourth grade question here to begin with, and fourth graders are really good at answering this question. If you have a times b equal to 0, what do you know must be true about a or b? Now, fourth graders love multiplying and getting 0 because they know that's one of the easy ones. They know they're going to get that one right because in order to get 0 when you multiply, you have to have multiplied by 0. So in this situation, if a times b equals 0, then you know either a is 0 or b is 0 or they're both 0. That's the only way to multiply and get 0 is if you're multiplying by 0. So our zero product property, as we abbreviate here as ZPP, says if two or more values multiply to equal 0, then one or both of those values must be 0. This is a really powerful property that's going to make some things really, really easy. And I'm going to be honest, your homework in this section is going to be extremely easy. But we must do it because we must understand the zero product property. It's very, very important in solving quadratics. So let's look at an application here of the zero product property to a quadratic equation. Again, I wrote the zero product property up here. If a times b equals 0, then a equals 0 or b equals 0. But we're going to use that to look at this equation right here. Now I have a quadratic equation in factored form. You notice we're starting to make connections to what we did last chapter, where I have a quadratic equation in factored form. X minus 3 times x plus 4 equals 0. Now when we look at that equation, we need to think like fourth graders, where our first parenthesis is a and our second parenthesis is b, and we notice that our equation is equal to 0. So if a times b gives us 0, then a has to be 0 or b has to be 0. That's the zero product property. Because we're multiplying to get 0, either the first parenthesis had to equal 0 or the second one did. So I take my two equations and I'm going to go ahead and solve those to get two solutions. Just like you remember from the square root method, we always get two solutions to a quadratic equation. Just when we use the zero product property, we're not always going to get a plus or minus situation. We're going to get two distinct solutions. When I solve x minus 3 equals 0, I simply add 3 to both sides, giving me x equals 3. Or I add my x plus 4 equals 0, I minus 4 from both sides, giving me x equals 4. So those are my two possible solutions. X could be 3 or x could be negative 4. Alright, a second example here says 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 5 equals 0. And now that 0 is our key value here because I have a times b equals 0. So that means either a has to equal 0 or b has to equal 0. So now by using the zero product property, I've taken a complex equation and split it into two simple equations, where I can solve this equation by minusing 2 and dividing by 3, giving me x equals negative 2/3. I can solve my second equation by adding 5 to both sides and dividing by 2, giving me x equals 5/2. So the zero product property and 0 being such a special number allows us to take a complex equation and split it into two simpler equations equal to 0. Alright, our final example here is a monomial times a binomial. And this is actually the easiest of all of our problems. However, it's one that visually seems to bother people, and so we tend to get this one wrong. When you look at this, x times x plus 4 equals 0. There's our a, there's our b. So I have a times b equals 0. So then a could be 0 or b could be 0. And this one I said was even easier than the other ones because I've already got x equal to 0. I don't need to do any solving. That one's already solved. So I just solved this one. And my two solutions are x equals 0 and x equals -4. All right, so you'll have a worksheet here on solving using the zero product property. It's a pretty quick, simple rule. And go ahead and use that, and you should be able to finish up your homework in class.